Well, we're back. It's After the Ashes, the beautiful Altadena podcast, breaking down legislation and recovery. This is Shauna Dawson-Beer here, and this is episode 11 coming at you. Can you believe we're on episode 11, Steve?
Well, talking to a guy who's written 300 Substacks since the end of
Steve
March.
can absolutely believe we're on episode 11. Steve doesn't understand why we're not on episode 111. This one is Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. AB 782 signed, AB 797
SB 782.
ABS
It's all the same.
I do it every fucking time, guys, and I apologize. It is kind of all the same, but for the sake of accuracy.
Yes, because, we have heard.
For the sake of accuracy, you know who you are. I know what I've done. I'm sorry. SB 782, which we all know, and you know because you've been hearing so much about it, did get signed this weekend. It passed the governor's desk. Not a surprise at all, right, Steve? No surprise there. And we're going to dig into that, but no surprises there. But the surprise was that AB 797, John Harabedian's bill, that we all thought would in fact pass and be the foil, be the other side of the coin to 782.
The multiplier, yeah.
The multiplier. And we'll get into what that means because I know most listeners are like, what's he talking about?
Oh, I'll tell you.
He's going to explain. Got vetoed, which was not what was expected. And we'll talk about what was in that veto letter and what happened. Steve, what happened? Steve this morning to me off record said, and now I just put it very much on record, said, we got RF'd. And I was like, do you mean rat fucked?
I would say that decisions were made and we will be the recipients of those decisions. That's the political answer.
We're going to be left holding the bag of these decisions. I'm going to try and give us a little levity before we jump into it. I was going to save the levity for the end, but I'm actually going to give it to us right now because this is such a wrist-slitting episode. Oh, I shouldn't use those terms.
Well, look, we knew today would be a big episode.
I know.
We were hoping it would be very different, but unfortunately it's not.
In our group, someone posted, and it was so funny, like, here's some Halloween costumes for Altadena for 2025, and a couple, and this came off of the fact that there was an image of someone's home, the standing home where they had decorated for Halloween, and it has a giant State Farm sign blown up. It says State Farm, and it was like, check in with your adjuster here, and it was like, basically in hell. It is hilarious, and someone had posted a whole list of ideas for costumes that included, State Farm adjuster, number 30, whatever you're on. I'm on number 10 now, folks. All these, it's fire survivor humor. But I added to that, like, we don't forget the ghosts of SB 782 and AB 797 because both are going to be haunting us for decades.
Yeah. Very, very well put, Shauna. This was very much a shock to us. So where do you want to start?
I think it's important to start with the landscape for those who don't necessarily understand this in Sacramento, right? And how, I don't think we need to get into the mechanics of how exactly this all works. I think everyone listening understands, bills pass, various stages. Once they've passed their last stage in California, which is the Senate, they then go on to the
House that it originated in.
Correct.
Yeah.
In this case.
For 782, it was the Senate, yes.
And then that goes to the governor's desk, and then the governor needs to the governor has 30 days, which expired on Monday, October 7th. Oh, no, 13th. What is today? 13th. I never know.
Again,
what day
a harbinger, a very great harbinger, right?
I know,
October
right,
13th.
I know, on the 13th. So he had until that date, and it usually happens, right at the 12th hour, as things get either signed or vetoed.
Yeah.
And you can tell which things that were going to be signed, everyone knew was going to be signed because they are big, self-congratulatory photo op moments, and there was no shortage of those for this bill where everyone just happened to all be up there to convene.
No,
to
he
do
was
their
down
lap.
here in district.
Oh, Riss.
I'm
sorry, I didn't realize he was here.
Yeah, he was down here.
But everyone just happens to be available, to do photos because obviously they knew in advance that this was going to be pushed through.
Yeah, 782 was going to be pushed through, yeah.
Which I think was no surprise.
Yeah, I mean, it was expected. It was, I think we all hoped that it wouldn't because what it portends, but the writing was on the wall and the machine was moving in that direction. So,
yeah. And for me, the biggest piece of this is the degree to which, again, we don't have a voice of representation. We just don't. I know that in our community, in our group alone,
there are certain people that think they will have a voice
Well, those folks are misguided, I'm afraid, because they've been lied to and misled, and they will have to figure that out on their own in their own due time. But what was I going to say? I wanted.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It's okay. That, just in effect, I completely lost my thought, Steve.
It's my bad. It'll come back to you.
It will come back to me. It always does. And for the listener, we're kind of we usually have like light notes of what we're going to discuss. And today we didn't do that. This one, we're just, you're hearing, this is how Steve and I just.
This is raw. Like
this
today
is having a conversation. Today is it's a shitty day for Altadena. Make no mistake.
I mean, we got pouring rain. Our atmospheric river, the LA Times jinxed us again. It's either the Dodgers or the weather. Or the LA Times has a tendency of doing that. Whenever they say it's going to be a drought year, we get massive rainstorms. And whenever they say the Dodgers are moving, Bill Plaschke, thank you, they end up losing. So it's like, I don't know what it is with the LA Times and jinxing.
Well, hopefully me wearing my LA Dodgers hat today is not jinxing.
Oh, no, he hasn't said anything about the Dodgers right now, so you should be okay.
All right. And I will say, I mean, it's a great preface before we jump back into all of this that, I spent as you know, Steve, I was in the dark last night filling sandbags. After driving all over Altadena more than I should have had to, because the station that per county and the LASD alert that had sandbags and sand did not have sandbags and sand, did not answer the door, didn't answer the bell, nothing. I was like, oh, well, thank you, LA County Fire Station. This is very on brand for 2025 and you. I hate to be a hater like that, but let me tell you, in the dark, when it's already sprinkling, when you have to go fill sandbags and deal with something on your dirt farm, which is what I call my lot, going where you're told to go, finding nothing, calling the sheriff's office, being told they have no idea what's going on, and then realizing that you and your group are the only source of information on this topic. It was a real thrill, as was being out there as it was starting to drizzle at almost 8 o'clock, tarping with visqueen and getting into sandbags. Good times.
So, on that note, it was sort of a fitting end to the legislative session that we've had. And, I think we've reached the point where disbelief doesn't exist anymore for us here in Altadena. And I guess, where do you want to start? 782?
Let's start with 782.
Okay. So
which we've talked quite a bit about, but I think, again, contextually now.
That's the Climate Resilience District.
Correct. That for anyone who, is just joining us, that was the CRD, that Sasha Renee Perez's bill, which I'm reluctant to even call it her bill because it's not her bill. It's the county's bill.
Well, it's her bill. She's the one who sponsored it. She's the one who owns it. She's the one who brought it up there.
Well, the governor owns it now, too.
Yeah.
But, this one, really, this is the county's thing. The county wanted it. The county got it. And, what we have been kind of hollering about here, and I know what I had forgotten, and I recalled because this is it, but, is that the frustration was that the mechanisms, so that everyone understands what the problem is with this bill. I think it's really important to very clearly outline that from the outset. The problem with 782 is that there is no community input in the sense that there is no protest feature. This bill should have had a protest feature. It didn't. Some of us went up to Sacramento, gave testimony requesting that the bill be amended before being passed with that protest feature. They would not put it in, which begs the question. One might say
you did a protest to get a protest?
I did a protest to get a protest. It begs the question, why? Why not? Why do they not want to?
Why?
Well, okay, exactly. It's obvious why. But, I know that, once that was ignored and didn't happen, from our group, hundreds of people in our group called, sent emails, letters, etc., to the governor's office saying, please do not pass this as it is. Altadena didn't have any input in this. We have no vote on this. We have no say on this. The structure to create this EIFD already exists.
Yeah.
It already exists. They don't need this bill for that. If you kill the bill,
they could have already been moving on it back in January. And now we're waiting around for a bill to get passed. We wasted 9-10 months waiting for it.
Exactly. For nothing.
No, it was something.
It was the exact.
And that is the key thing that everybody needs to realize is that they're going to tell you was the 20% increase in the geography that would be covered by the CRD. But the reality is it's the protest feature. It always was the protest feature. It'll always be the protest feature. And they wanted to be able to put this in place and not have to be accountable to the community. Whatever they decide to do will be what they do, period, the end.
Yep. And now Altadena gets to hold the bag again. So now what, Steve? Well, or before we jump into the now what, I think it's important now we just gave a little bit more background on 782.
I think it's also important that, you got to understand that 782 also is going to be financed through the tax increment. So what 782 really does is it's a bonding authority, essentially. And that's going to be critical because absent something else, federal money or some other scalable mechanism to bring in money, we're going to be at the mercy of a program that's been around for 14 years. Its first bond issued was this year and for $57 million. So, folks,
yeah.
Stan, we're not moving very fast.
No, we're not, even though this was forced through Senate behind closed doors, again without a vote, as an emergency. It's an emergency. It was billed as an emergency. It's an emergency.
Well,
it's
the county still needs to vote on it. They're still going to have to get the Board of Supervisors to approve it, which we all know the Board of Supervisors in all likelihood will, no matter how loud Altadena is, though I think Altadena should be loud about it.
That's right, and we plan to get loud about it.
And then they're going to still have to create the model, which means they're going to have to do multiple meetings. Then they're going to have to go out and bond this thing. They got to determine what the bondable value is, and then go out to the market, bond it, have bond buyers buy it. I mean, honestly, folks, this is probably at least 6 to 12 months before we see anything out of this drop in a bucket for what we're going to need here. And there's no multiplier. I mean, unless they're dreaming that Trump miraculously is going to find Jesus and decide to give us money, which
I wouldn't hold my breath.
Especially after what our governor is doing right now with Prop 50. I mean, we're probably sitting here. And so what other mechanism is there to generate revenue and to bring in scalable financing solutions? And that was my point back in January. That was my point in March with starting the Substack. And that's my point sitting here October 14th. It's the same thing. We're missing that scalable solution. And guess what? It got vetoed yesterday, folks.
Right. So that's the other one. So Steve, for anyone who's just joining us, give a quick and dirty on what 797 was, what it would have done, and what the fact that it was killed now means for this. Because, this was, again, to go back to what I just said at the top of the episode, that was, in theory, the feeling was that it would also pass and that you would have these they would be working together. But now we don't have that. So walk us through what all of that means.
So what 797 was is it's a security that the state was going to issue. Okay, for those of you that just rolled your eyes and fell asleep, I apologize. But the idea was we were going to bring in money from the banks, put it through a community accountable organization, a nonprofit or multiple nonprofits, so that there was competition as opposed to one single rebuilding authority. But the idea being that bill would allow us to catalyze bank money that is in the billions, if not trillions of dollars, or hundreds of billions of dollars available. Mm-hmm. And more than anything, in the absence of the federal money, when you look at where you can get money from, you had to find a source of money that was going to be relatively cheap to borrow against, because otherwise we're going to be paying through the nose. And that's where this funding source really existed from. And what we were doing is we were focused on where we can use that money to address an issue, which is going to be the gap in financing or the gap in values for people's homes. So for you who lost a home and you had insurance, you didn't have insurance, now your property is going to be worth X amount of dollars. It was worth whatever it was worth January 6th. So the idea was to say, okay, let's allow the money from the banks to come in and provide liquidity to those homeowners so that they can at least get the value of their home or more the day of January 6th.
Right. And again, contextually, that's been lost. And I think as more comes out and more happens, like, for example, as we discover just how toxic the area is, as we are flooded with new construction from, developers or even from homeowners who choose to rebuild and then sell those homes or rent those homes. A lot of standing homes that are left or those that are burnt out lots, we've lost that value.
Well, look, you saw the Wall Street Journal article that you were quoted in last week. it was today's paper. The physical paper was online yesterday, but it said that we've lost 20% of the value of the properties that are selling right now, at least that's what Teresa Fuller said, since February.
No, she's right. There's no doubt she's right.
And as more properties go on the market, you're going to see a continued drop. And this bill would have enabled
market.
And this bill would have proven the model that we could have used that bank money to do good, to bring a scalable solution, and allow homeowners the security to know that their property, they don't have to sell for below value of what their house was worth January 6th. I mean, isn't that the point of the settlement from Edison in why we have a wildfire fund? It would have been a complementary solution to the wildfire fund, which now is removed. And, everybody in Altadena who is selling for below the value of what their home was worth January 6th, whether it's $10, $10,000, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, you go call the governor. He's just vetoed your ability to take that money and have it. And anybody who supported him on this did the exact same thing.
That's right.
Sorry, I'm very passionate about it because it was the right solution for what we needed in our community. At least one of the key pieces to help build back. And it was just taken off the table for no reason.
Walk us through actually what the rationale was for the veto, because for anyone who doesn't know, I know. But for anyone who doesn't know, there is a letter that always accompanies both the vetoes and the signing, but the veto letters are always the best. It explains why the governor didn't sign.
So when the bill was winding its way through, because it was going to be issued by what's called the iBank, the infrastructure bank. We have a bank in California that bonds and provides financing to businesses and organizations to do infrastructure and some economic development. That's why we created it, okay? So the infrastructure bank didn't want to do this per se, or at least that was the indication. And they decided that this bill was going to add tens of millions of dollars allegedly to their budget. I don't see how that was. You maybe had the legal fees to set up the security itself and maybe one person just overseeing the funds, but it was supposed to be self-regulating so that we wouldn't have to have a continued appropriation. The idea was to make it so there was no appropriation. And on the back end, they got to share in the upside potential when those properties sold, if they sold for above market value, that the infrastructure bank would be recompensated for it, which is the reason why ultimately the bill was to go through appropriations, not because it was going to cost the government money, according to the legislature. It's because it was actually going to make the government money, and they were going to have to figure out where to put those dollars. So the argument that the governor's office said was, no, actually, this is going to cost us money. It's going to cost us tens of millions of dollars. Nobody had any kind of accounting for what that tens of millions of dollars was. They just said it. And then the governor vetoes the bill, saying it's going to cost our state, which is a $330 billion budget, up from $180 billion from when Jerry Brown was last year as governor. $330 billion, folks. $300 million just being spent on a special election. We couldn't find a few million dollars, allegedly, to be able to figure out how people in Altadena were going to be able to preserve the value of their land. So for all you residents and homeowners in Altadena, think about that for a minute and think about how much you're cared about in light of all of this. That's chump change to this government. That is office supplies. That's a rounding error of a rounding error.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. They could have found the money if they wanted to.
It's couch change.
I
like to say couch. It's the cushion change.
Yeah. No. And, there are areas they could have found the money if they wanted it. And that's what the veto message said to me. It wasn't about the policy. Policy was great. They didn't have it. There's no redundancy. We have a different source of funds that can make up for what this fund was going to be. Nope. It was just too much money.
And here we are. So I think, the bottom line is we know the town is left, like I said.
It's about priorities. It's not about money.
And we're not a priority.
No.
We've said this repeatedly. I don't know how many other ways to say it. Altadena gets treated like the redheaded stepchild. I'm going to use an expression that shows my age. I don't mean any offense with that statement, obviously. If you're redheaded, as my mother was, and some of what's left of my gray hair is, it's a beautiful thing. But it's that it's death by neglect. in Altadena. That's what happened on January 7th, 8th, and 9th. And I say 7th, 8th, and 9th because for anyone who is not aware, we burned for days without anyone coming to help. And, I think what, at least for me, what this continues to say is that we're not the priority. Our rebuild and recovery is clearly not the priority.
Well, here's the other thing. This was a community-driven initiative.
Well, I'm going to get to that. No, don't be sorry. I'm with you. It's really upsetting is that, ultimately we are not the priority. The machine is going to get what the machine wants, and make no mistake, this is the machine, and what the machine wants is increased property values for increased property tax revenue to continue to fund the machine. Because again, make no mistake, Altadena, that gets a teeny tiny piss pot fraction of what we put into the county in return. In what services? I don't know. Over and over, no services or half-ass subpar services. We are, though, a cash cow. And this makes us even more of a cash cow. This is a disaster economy. It is yet another scenario where everyone but the fire victim gets rich. And ultimately, nobody cares about us. They don't care if we can come home. None of this does that. Even though, very regrettably, a lot of our community orgs were led to believe that it would, that this would support rebuilding, that this would actually even potentially fund some of these organizations or CLTs.
This being 782.
They curried a lot of favor in the community by frankly being dishonest. And, the thing I kept saying to folks who would come to me and say, well, the bill's going to do this and this and this. I'm like, great. Where is that? That's literally not in the bill. Well, I was told by so-and-so elected that it's going to do this and this and this, and we've been promised, and you don't need to worry, and stop worrying, and stop kicking up so much fuss. And I'm like, okay, guys, except none of that is in writing. Where is it? Because it's not in writing because it isn't real. And are you sure that, they're the ones who said it, or did you? Bottom line, there are a lot of promises to be kept now. There's a lot of promises to be kept now, and this is where the wheels hit the road, right? Where the tread hits the road of what's going to happen.
Well, who's going to be around when this is all said and done?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to actually still be able to call in the favor? And, at the end of the day, who's going to be able to say, you promised me X, now what? And the answer is going to be, just like that post I wrote about, I can't remember the name of it, but, a couple weeks ago about the realization of what happens when the phone calls don't get returned, when you realize that this is what's happened to you, how you feel. It's horrible that it goes this way, but you're the belle of the ball until you're not needed anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll be very interesting to see how this all shakes out and who rises and who falls. And unfortunately, a lot of people were a part of a game that was so much bigger than any of us ever understood or ever have been a part of. This is a $10 billion rebuild, but it's also about, is this about sticking it to Trump? Is Altadena an example that has been sacrificed upon in this game to show Washington that we're going to get the federal money come hell or high water, even though we have an answer to the problem? We don't care. And if homeowners lose money on their property, so be it. It's sacrifice for the bigger good. And I think people, this goes back to the whole, people have asked me, why are you against Prop 50? I'm against Prop 50 because I think it's bad policy. I think it's wrong to try to play a game the way that we're playing it. Because at the end of the day, whether you're giving up your rights as a citizen for something that was created by the citizens to provide a check on political power, or whether it's something like what we try to do in Altadena, but now we're being sacrificed at the altar of this game of, we got to show it to Trump. It's wrong. It's not about Trump. I don't care about Trump. Sorry. It doesn't matter. What matters is what's in front of us every day. And taking it out of that reality and putting it elsewhere, it's a travesty. It's dishonest. It's wrong. Because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is not going to change our lives here in Altadena. He's not going to miraculously make everybody make more money or not. That was our governor. That was his job, to be able to support and back up the people who live here and their investments and their long earned, assets, and ensuring that those assets are secured. And he took that away from us. For what?
Exactly. Well, that's the question. That is the big question of the day.
And is this a microcosm of what's happening to our state? Are we losing the thread here? And I think people who've read my Substack know that this is something I'm starting to really question. Are we losing the thread? Are we becoming so rabidly against a man that it's to our detriment now? That we're fighting him to our detriment to stick it to him that he doesn't care about. Like, where's the logic in this? That's what I'm trying to understand. And that at its root is where it feels like 797 exists, because Altadena, there's no more money.
Exactly.
There's no source of scalable cash to come in and rebuild.
And this is what we've been talking about from episode 1. Where's the money? Where is it? How are we doing this? This isn't tens of millions, hundreds of millions. Our rebuild requires billions of dollars.
Tens of billions.
Tens of billions of dollars. It's an amount of money that is hard to comprehend. It's an amount of money that I've been, saying from day one. We know it's not coming from the federal government. The county is, scrambling and has no plan because they have no money. I really felt that the county got caught with their pants down in a lot of respects, because they were anticipating that this money would come from the federal government, because that's what always happens, and it didn't happen. And the minute there's no money, there's no plan, because there's no plan for where to get the money, which makes what's happening now with these bills even more disheartening and disappointing and disturbing, because this still does not solve any of those problems. Where the fuck is the money coming from? How is this town getting rebuilt other than selling us off to the highest bidder? Which is effectively exactly what is happening right now. If you don't think that this is going to bring in a wave of, and I say a wave because we've already had other waves, but this is going to be a rapid wave of gentrification, densification, and a complete change of that community between SB 9, 782, no 797. This is what we get. I mean, I've said it before, I will say it again. It is like we are being smoked out of our homes, our lives, our properties. For so many reasons, people are not going to be able to come back. They're going to be there. There are many already who've had to make the difficult choice to sell, which I completely understand. For 100 reasons, some people have to do that, and it shouldn't matter who they sell to. They need to do what they have to do. But the reality is the system has been set up for people that you maybe don't want buying those lots to buy those lots and to do things that maybe you don't want them to do on them. Well, and there's nothing to stop that right now. I was at a friend's home yesterday because I was up, at my lot, and I say home. It was the FKA home, but since I was there having to do sandbags on my lot, I'd asked some of my girlfriends, hey, does anybody need a spot check while I'm up here and humping, sandbags? And so one friend had said, yeah, can you go run by and look at my lot? Because she was particularly worried that where she was positioned, that there may be runoff from her lot, even though the, Army Corps left it exactly as they're supposed to, wattled and everything else, that because her neighbor next door, who is behind her, well into a rebuild, because they are contractors and they're doing their own rebuild. And with SB 9, it allowed them for their new house to max out that lot. Their house is like 2 feet from her property line on the 3 sides of the back. And then in the front, they have, the required easement. But there's no yard, no backyard, no side yard, no yard. So she was worried that, like, hey, this is going to run off down into his new build. And, ultimately it was like, there's no amount of sandbags in the world that's going to stop this. He needs a retaining wall that he hasn't put in yet. So at some point, it can't be your problem. But holy shit. When I stepped out and looked at that, at the reality of this towering house pushed up against every one of, because, if you know Altadena, we have some really weird lot lines, but pushed against every border of the fence with no space around it at all. And tell me again, how is that? This is going to be a good segue, but how the heck is that better for fire hazard? Oh, that's right. It's not. might, again, where I am in track 4602, that burned as hot and heavy as it did, despite many of us having upgraded our homes to make every Chapter 7A suggestion, a reality, from the roofs, the eaves, the gutters, the windows, the doors, the defensible space, the pea gravel, you name it. I did it all. It doesn't matter when everything around you is that close because of the way our, those villages were built.
We had the zoning that created those easements because
Correct.
Of the fact
this is why we have a CSD that's being ignored.
Fire,
it's going to take out the house next
door. Whether
door.
It's a wildfire or just a fire
Correct.
itself.
It's going to take out the house next door. It's absolutely insane. The lack of logic. It's why, again, it takes you back to follow the money, kids. It is all about the money. Everything is about, yes, they want you to maximize the house on your lot because guess what? The property tax is considerably higher and it's more money in the pocket annually that, spoiler alert, Altadena will never reap the benefit of. So, getting into that fire hardening issue, that's a good segue for another bill that people were really worried about was AB 629.
That was vetoed.
Exactly. So that was the update I wanted to give. So a lot of people were really concerned about, we've talked about AB 629, which is that zone zero defensible space bill that would have said, you have to have X number of you have to have X amount of defensible space based on X amount of feet away from your home without any foliage. It was I call it the Bougainvillea bill, right? Because there was that great LAS story of LA, your Bougainvillea has to go because the Bougainvillea is clearly what's going to take the town down. Not, no fire response or no water or a malignant private utility for profit situation. But in fact, it's not
it's a public utility.
It's not the late stage capitalist nightmare. It's the Bougainvillea. So don't worry about it. Just get rid of your Bougainvillea. But yeah, that bill was defeated, which is good because it was fucking dumb. So I was glad to see at least that one didn't make it and people can, shake that one off and direct their ire in much more appropriate places like what we're going to do now about 782 because now we all have it. It's not just about Newsom has to own this with the county and with Sasha Renee Perez, our senator. Everybody now has to own this. This is ours. We own this. So we have to decide. And I say that we have to decide because I'm going to go back to how to be your best own advocate. We don't have to lay down and accept that this is the reality. It is reality, but we have power in numbers. There are times where you have to remind your electeds, even if those electeds are terming out and you don't have, the lever of a vote, you have to stand up and actually remind them that they work for you and that is your money that they are working with and that is paying their salary and their pension and their beautiful homes and all of this other wonderful fun stuff that our tax dollars pay for. We actually do get to have a say. Make the phone calls, write the letters. Letters these days are emails. It's very easy. You can submit a form on websites. It's very simple. It's in the new technology world, doing this is a lot easier than it used to be. But we have to actually unite and do it. And right now, that means very simply, because this has passed the governor's desk already, if you want, still drop him a note and say, hey, nobody wanted this, nobody asked for this, and you own it now, and we're not going to forget that when it comes time to vote for president, because we all know he's making a bid for president.
Well, he's got to get through the primaries.
Yeah, he's got to get through the primaries, exactly. And, it's a very simple thing. We do vote, and he needs the Altadena voter, because guess who the Altadena voter is? Black women, Hispanic voters, Mexican-American voters, and white women. All of us vote and are very critical demographics in this state for the Democratic Party that they have seen slipping year after year. So now's really not the time to screw us and not even buy us dinner first. At least buy us dinner first. Or in this case, help us rebuild our town in some way, shape, or form that even remotely looks like what was taken from all of us.
Look, if the town rises up and says, look, Governor, we need to figure this out and we need that financing solution. I mean, they could do a budget trailer bill at this point if somebody wanted to. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know if it can happen, but it's possible.
It is. Anything is possible.
If the town rises up and if the media picks up on this, that's the other piece to this is we need the media now. Yep. It's time for Pasadena Now, the local papers, the LA Times, the Pasadena Star News, pick up the story.
Yep.
Like we just got hosed here. And it went from town figures out how to finance its own rebuild to we just took away the major lever. What are you going to do?
I think that's it. What are you going to do? What are we going to do?
What's the plan, Governor? Where's the question to the governor's office, to GoBiz, to the various people in Sacramento? What are you going to do? County, what are you going to do? Is it going to be we're going to get the federal money? Because go call the delegation in Washington and find out where that is. It's not coming. So what's the magical plan? Are there billions and billions of dollars sitting in the governor's in some account up in Sacramento that miraculously we're going to be able to tap into to help finance this rebuild?
Because they couldn't find
a couple million to do it. How the hell are they going to find billions? I'm at a loss here.
You're not alone. We're all at a loss here. So outside of continuing to pressure the governor, which we can do through comment, you won't find SB 782 on that drop-down form anymore because the bill passed. But you can still add a secondary comment and write it in.
Send an email.
You can still do it. And the other place we've got to hit is the county. And as we all know, our 5th District Supervisor is Catherine Barger, and she is very easy to find online, and to send emails and submit forms to as well, and let her know too, hey,
look, the
town doesn't want this, but now that we have it, you need to be accountable into how it's applied.
Well, there is a step here. I mean, and the supervisor has flexibility. 2 things they can do. The first is she can add in the protest feature if she chose to. Second of all, she doesn't have to do the CRD. Mm-hmm. And again, there are other problems with the CRD, the Climate Resilience District, that I can tell you about that go beyond just Altadena and the finance piece. There's the expanded area that it is and how that affects us and potentially the Palisades with Santa Monica. Like there are towns that can be part of this that can pull more than they put in. So there's a whole different side of this, which I have in a Substack. If you really want to know, you can go into the Substack and see it. But the county can just do a regular EIFD, which has the normal procedures. And what the supervisor can say is, look, I get it. Thank you, Senator Perez, for putting this bill through, but we're going to go with regular order, as we like to call it in legislative language. We're going to go through the regular process, set this up right, do it as an EIFD, which already is on the books, which has everything there. We don't need what the CRD is going to do because we don't want to be in a position where La Cañada or San Marino can pull, or Sierra Madre or Pasadena can pull money out of Altadena. And
to remind people, that's what this did. The CRD, this Climate Resilient District, increased the reach by 20%, which a lot of people were confused by. I saw someone in our group comment that saying, oh, great, that means West Altadena will get the care it needs. I was like, oh my gosh, no, that's not what that means. It means 20% outside of our borders, of Altadena's borders.
We can pull in revenue, but those revenues are infinitesimal relative to the amount of revenue that Altadena is going to create, because the turnover in properties in La Cañada or San Marino or even Pasadena are going to be, or Sierra Madre, sorry, I keep saying San Marino, are going to be far less than the 6,000 properties plus commercial districts inside of Altadena. So if we get a couple $1 million from La Cañada and they want to go build a sewer, they can go take that money out of us and do the same, because guess what? We're all the same people.
Yep.
And guess
no one
what?
Understands
you can't
that. This is our property tax dollars that we're already seeing teeny percentages of come back into our town. Now we'll be funding projects in our neighboring towns like Sierra Madre and La Cañada, who don't need our money, but we do.
So where I'm going with this is, again, if the supervisor wants to make this right, which she can, and this will be her legacy, the EIFD is the way to go. And at least at that point, we can potentially have a protest feature where Altadena is in control of Altadena's own destiny.
Yep.
And for those that wanted the CRD, you'll have the same flexibility under the EIFD you will under whatever promises you were made. You could still possibly or probably get, or they can still potentially give you what you want. I don't know what you're promised,
but
and then the other thing with 797 is potentially the county can potentially create the same security. The difference is, we really wanted the state to do it because it's something that other areas within the state are going to need when they have a similar circumstance where the state could have deployed it and been on the ground with a solution, standing this up within 30 days of the fires occurring. We could amend the bill down the road. Right now it's just for Altadena and LA, but this is a tool that was on the books that the state could be deploying. And it's really sad that we gave that up.
It is, but I'm going to say, as I have said repeatedly since 2016 about our Democratic Party, and I will preface this by saying I am a Democrat, though I lean a little bit more socialist, democratic socialist a la Bernie Sanders, which Steve is not quite there in that spectrum. On some issues, I lean a little bit more moderate.
Hey, AI says that I'm a populist.
That's interesting. Well, at least you're not a Marxist, so that's good. But as I preface by saying that, what I've said since 2016, and these are actually words that I've stolen from Mr. Beer, so Mr. Beer gets full credit, but the Democratic Party could not organize a piss-up in a brewery or an orgy in a brothel. And that is unfortunately what has kind of gotten us into this pickle. And I say this pickle meaning the pickle that our entire country finds ourselves in the first place. And now, here we are.
Well, again, there is hope. There is a way to get there. Unfortunately, we saw what we as a town are and where the state sees us. And for those that think you're going to get follow-on support, let this be the harbinger of what is to come. We're done. And to our supervisor, I don't think this falls on you. I think that the state could have given you more tools and they chose not to. They can't absolve themselves of the responsibility here. But you now get to clean up the mess. So this is your choice. And in politics, it's interesting, and this is a lesson I've learned from my time in D.C., is you're given choices. They come to you, they ask you. It has to be your choice. It can't be forced on you. The governor, you were given a choice to veto 797. That was your choice. That wasn't forced on you. You decided that this was what was right. Supervisor Barger, you're now given the choice of how to implement the tools that you were given. That's your choice. Whether the long-term effects of this or not are what you're concerned with, these are your decisions. Altadena, you were given the choice. And we decided that there were people within our community that wanted things a certain way. And that was the choice that was given to us, and it's unfortunate that this is where we stand. So these are not decisions that are made for us. These are decisions that we chose. Whether you like the choice or not, or whether you like how it was presented, that's what it is.
It is what it is. As I've said a lot, that is my motto of the year, it seems. It's going to be my new family crest. It is what it is. But with that, it doesn't have to be that. I don't want to sound defeatist because I'm never defeatist. And
if we were defeatist, we wouldn't be talking about this right now.
Exactly. I just want to really wrap this topic, reminding everyone again, I cannot reiterate enough. We hold the power, but we have to exercise it. We have to utilize it. We have to collectively make decisions and go and speak up for ourselves, because as we've said 1,000 times, no one is going to do it for us. No one is coming to do anything for us.
Look what you were able to do with the report, with the McChrystal report.
I know. Well, that was my beautiful Altadena working to support a number of other amazing organizations,
I'm not
predominantly
saying
Black
orgs.
No, I know.
Altadena.
But that is the people. Yeah. That was, that was organizing in 72 hours through a handful of groups, a handful of key people who came together, worked hard for 72 hours, and, made the beginning of a big difference. We're still pushing on that front. I think, to be very clear, that demand has not been met. We are still waiting for Attorney General Bonta to confirm that they will open a true independent investigation with subpoena power. And I know that no one, including myself, will rest until that happens. But
But look what you were able to do with that press conference.
Strides.
And
huge strides forward. It wasn't just like, look at us. We got a couple hundred people out to a press conference and every media outlet under the sun. We actually did something. We accomplished something. We did that. And we can do it again.
That's the point.
That is the point.
And we have time.
We can and we have to do it, but we need to do it.
And we have time. And now we can start marshaling our resources. We can start telling the story. We can start making people aware of what's going on. Because it's real now. I mean, we hoped to get it done the easy, I won't say the easy way, but the way that would have made it simpler for us. Now, we're going to have to do it a different way.
Now we have to do it a different way.
So,
Get ready to, it's like old school, setting up the old school postcard party, except this time it's like, just get on your phone, get on your computer, make a call, drop a public comment, send an email.
Well, and
we have the power.
When the county decides to bring up the CRD, they will bring a motion to introduce it. We got to go say no. Well, we have to be ready with plans to say this is what the alternative is. When the county is ready to do, figure out how to finance this thing, they got to go ahead and figure it out. I mean, we got to demand of them. There are answers. It's no longer acceptable to say the federal government's not bringing the money.
That's right.
We
know it.
It's no longer acceptable to say, well, Trump this, Trump that. Forget it. It doesn't matter. You can't sit there and complain. There are answers, and we don't have to accept it.
That's right. But we do have to act. So with that, I'm going to jump into another topic. I wanted to touch briefly on the Wall Street Journal story that you had just mentioned a bit ago, Steve. So for anyone who missed it, there was a big Wall Street Journal story that hit online on Sunday night. What is today? We are recording this on the
14th.
Tuesday, the 14th of October. So this hit Sunday night online, Monday night wide, and then this morning, Tuesday the 14th.
It was in the actual physical paper.
It was in the physical paper, I believe, on the front page, just below the fold.
Yep.
So the title, this was covering the rebuild in Altadena, and it was, I think there was some hope that it would be a bit of a broader story, and I know that the journalist who worked really hard on the story, she spent hours with me, and I know she spent hours with so many people in various swaths of the community to really get, and you too, Steve, and you're not in that article, but I know she spoke with you.
Yeah, well, she read the Substack. She didn't need to talk to me.
Exactly. But, she really did the work to get the background and some context and understand all the nuance of what was happening in Altadena and what we are facing ahead with this rebuild and how challenging this is. Unfortunately, modern current reality prevailed, and the story ended up being what feels very much like a clickbait fluff piece, but there are some good quotes, even if they're somewhat out of context. I know a few people quoted in the story. We're not particularly thrilled with how they were quoted because it was kind of pulled out of context because of the way the story was edited. Never the writer's fault. This is, for anyone in media or journalism, you understand this is kind of the machine sometimes. But the story ended up centering primarily around Edwin Castro. And for anyone who knows who thinking that name is familiar, it's because this is the guy who a few years ago bought a winning lottery ticket at the Altadena gas station at Woodbury and Fair Oaks, which is still standing, yay, and happened to be a $2 billion Powerball winner. And, a lot of people have been following what this guy's been doing with his money. There was a lot of misconception that he lived in Altadena. He did not live in Altadena. He lived in La Crescenta and was just driving through Altadena on the day that he bought that ticket. But he did spend the first few years of his life in Altadena in his childhood home before his family moved. And despite, again, a lot of wildly inaccurate info floating around, no, he did not live in Altadena and didn't come back to Altadena, which people were thinking, oh, he came back. No, he didn't. He bought a house for his parents. But the title of the story is he won the $2 billion Powerball. Now he's buying up lots burned in the LA fires. So we're going to dig briefly into this. And we're going to dig into it a little bit because Wall Street Journal is behind a paywall, and it could not, we live in a universe where people don't read in the first place. They like to comment on social media without actually reading. But that could not be more the case with this particular story. Oh my gosh, the comments are wild. The comments are like ready to saint this guy. Like, oh, Saint Edwin's doing this wonderful thing for Altadena. I was like, wait, did anyone actually read the story? Because he's very, very clear.
He's an investor.
That he's here for profit. He's an investor.
He's
going to become
lots
a
to developer. Them.
And he's not giving them away. It's not philanthropy. It's not charity. They're not going to be discounted. It's none of that. In fact, the biggest takeaway in this story for me and really in our group and our community was his stated timeline, where he explains that he purchased, as you just said, Steve, he purchased 15 lots for $10 million. He has no intention of buying any additional lots. He plans to develop those lots with single-family homes. Some of them, he said, will be in the vein of what was lost. Others will be larger and have more, quote unquote, bells and whistles and surprises. But his timeline to rebuild those homes is a decade. He plans to rebuild and sell those homes on those 15 lots in 10 years, because it is in 10 years that he believed he would, the value would be back in the community and he would see the ROI he was looking for, right? He is not doing anyone any favors. So the comments of like, oh, thank God for him, bless him, he's doing such a wonderful thing, he wants to help Altadena, why can't more people be like this? I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, he's not just as a developer, he's kind of the worst, because he's not the developer who's going to hustle and get that shit built so our town is rebuilt. You're going to have dirt lots for a decade, and then you're going to have construction, and then you're finally going to get a new neighbor. Oh my gosh. And he goes on at length about how he has no idea what he is doing. And so he has hired all of these experts to help him figure it out. All I kept thinking with this whole thing is like, do you not just want to take the tax write-off? You could have easily funded Green Line. You could fund the CLT. You could have simply given that $10 million as a write-off to one of these orgs that already exist to prop them up and allow them to buy those 15 lots and then allow them to rebuild at the economy of scale through a partner like, for example, Habitat for Humanity, but there are so many, to actually help people get back in the community. There's so many ways you could actually have done good, but you clearly have no interest in that. And by the way, zero judgment. It's your money. Do whatever you want with it. I'm not going to pass judgment on that. But why the heck are you out here talking about it? Why did he even do this story? I think that's what I wanted to know with all of this. Why did you even, the publicist in me is like, dude, no. Where are your advisors? Zip it. This is not what you need to be talking about. It's not flattering.
Yeah, but
why?
Here's the other thing. 15 lots.
It's nothing.
It's nothing. I mean, we got 6,000 lots that need to be redeveloped. And that was what
More than.
Yeah, and that's what I tried to convey was, where's the scale and who's lurking behind the scenes?
Right.
What does that really look like?
What does it look like?
And losing 797 took one of the bigger buyers off the table that would have at least had community.
Correct.
Accountability.
Correct. My quote, and this is a good place to end this, go find the story if you can. Yes, it's behind a paywall, but if you want to read it, go on the Wayback Machine. Little pro tip, Wayback Machine. Go find the web archive. You should be able to read it that way. But and if that doesn't work, find someone with a subscription to give you a gift link so you can read it. But my quote.
Did you know somebody who had a gift link?
I did, because I am, if I'm being completely honest, I am a New York Times subscriber. Very happy to pay that fee. I am not a WSJ subscriber, but someone I know who might be sitting right next to me is, and thank you for that gift link. So I could actually
have the
read
Washington
the
Post and I've got the LA Times. I get my fill.
Okay. So my quote in the story, which I will read for you, for those who are not inclined to read it, I just said, people have to realize that is what we are battling against. It is the development question, the densification question, the gentrification question. Still the truth. So
thank you for fighting for us, Shauna.
Well, thank you for fighting. We're all fighting for us, right? I've been saying it since January 8th. Nobody's coming to help. No one's going to do it for us. We're on our own now. That's why this one takes the entire village. I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it again. This one takes everybody. It means I don't care who you have a problem with. You don't like that neighbor. You don't like this organization. You have a beef with this person. Cool. Get over it. You can pick that up again after the town's rebuilt. We can all get back to our petty little fiefdoms when the town is rebuilt. Until then, this takes the village. This will not get done without all of us finding ways to simply make it happen together, because we are in this, I hate this expression so much, but it's actually true here. We really are in this together. Mm-hmm. It's just, we're on our own.
We're all together?
He couldn't help himself. So with that, I'm going to wrap us on a small business shout out, because speaking of all being in this together, yes, we are. We got to support our small businesses. I'm going to talk about a couple of pop-ups today, and specifically bread, because it's pouring rain today, and it is October, and we are heading into soup season and all of those wonderful things. And I don't know about you, but I think about bread, even though I am like,
but you're not allowed to eat it.
I'm the for real gluten-free person. I'm celiac, but I'm going to actually get to the option that may exist for us too. I want to talk about our neighbor Guillaume, who's, and I say neighbor because this is another fellow Altadenan. He actually, again, like everybody, lost his home, total loss, fire survivor. Also lost his business, his home business, and all of his equipment. But he did finally get back up on his feet to reopen his business, Le Pain Beurre, which is bread and butter, French. Phenomenal. I say this, for those who don't know me personally, I have an extensive hospitality background. That is my universe is food. I've had the pleasure of eating for a living for a couple decades. This is his product. I mean, I can tell I don't have to eat it. Just seeing it, touching it, smelling it. It is classic French bread, beautiful baguettes. I've heard from so many people, all of his he has some laminated pastry, which is, for like croissant, that all of it is fantastic. So if you can find him, he has regular pop-ups right now at Altadena Bev. You've heard us plug Altadena Bev before. They're a 75-year-old legacy business that is now being stewarded by Kate and Adam, who are amazing, on North Allen, adjacent Armin Market and Prime Pizza, and soon Bevel Coffee. Bevel Coffee, another great little pop-up. They have also been actively doing pop-ups on the patio at Prime Pizza. They now have a brick and mortar spot. I don't think they're not directly next door to Altadena Bev. They're two doors up.
They're right next to the barbershop.
Exactly, a couple doors north. So you can look forward to that coming too. Now, if you are like me and you are gluten challenged and you have special needs, as I like to say, we had another awesome cottage baker, a friend of mine, Jenny Kalaka. Jenny had Altadena Bread Co. So Altadena Bread Co., she was doing phenomenal fermented sourdough gluten-free loaves. She's also gluten challenged. Next level. I had not had any kind of bread like this. I was blown away. My pandemic loaves didn't hold a candle to what she was doing. Jenny, again, she and her wife lost their home, lost all of her business, all of her cottage business, everything, right? In fact, in her case, they were out of town when this happened. So they came back from vacation to the whole town being gone. She also kind of just started to try and get back on her feet, trying to dig deep to do a little baking in her temporary accommodation. And completely on a whim, she registered for a global bread competition that actually just took place in Vegas. I'm trying to remember which one it was. What was that? It's the World Bread Award. So she was up against dozens of other loaves from all over the world, in the gluten-free category, and she just won.
That's
She
awesome.
took top honors. So she's looking at coming back too. So congrats to Jenny. A lot of love for just all of the creativity in Altadena. I'm going to wrap it on that note. This is what our town is about. It's just, we are full of just incredibly creative, resourceful, interesting people. Our town was our people, and we got to keep all our people in our town.
It's a great way to end it.
All right, that's where we're going to end it. So this is After the Ashes, Beautiful Altadena podcast. You can find us online, social media at Beautiful Altadena. You can find our private Facebook groups for residents or those who are residents on January 7th on Facebook. You can find us on Substack, and you can find Steve on Substack.
The Alta Policy Wonk.
Alta Policy Wonk. He is still writing, even though he threatens to stop.
Yeah.
It's a threat.
I was hoping I was going to stop.
Yeah, he's not
My wife
gonna.
would like me to as well.
I believe that. I absolutely believe that.
I'm sure there's some readers that are like, please, no more.
You don't have to read it all. Even I don't read it all. Shh. I have to get Cliff Notes when I miss it. So with that, you will hear us again on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in. You can find the podcast, as always, anywhere you listen to podcasts, from YouTube to iTunes to which is Apple Podcasts to Spotify.
And I also provide the link off my Substack.
Correct. So until next time, stay safe out there.
Thank you very much
for listening. Keep up the fight.
Yep.